And welcome back to Game Escape. Here today to take a look at one of my favorite Saturn games, and that is Last Bronx. And, you know, this game is kind of interesting. When you think about Virtua Fighter and that system, that fighting system on the Saturn, of course you had Virtua Fighter, the original that was shipped with the US, and I guess also the Japanese Sega Saturns, which was an absolute disaster of a game. They came out with a remix, it was a little bit better. Then you had Virtua Fighter 2, which was one of the finest examples of a 3D game of its era. I still maintain that, but a terrific fighter, a kind of a worthy approximation of the arcade experience. And then Sega, you know, had to think, well, how do we finally got this engine down, it runs beautifully on the Saturn, how do we follow up with that? And you had Fighting Vipers, which was the Virtua Fighter engine with armor and sped up a little bit, and you have here Fighting Vipers, the Virtua Fighter engine with weapons. Now I know Fighting Vipers, some of the moves you could actually use, like a guitar, a skateboard as a weapon, but here the main striking attacks are with weapons, and it's pulled off beautifully. I remember reading in this game that the weapon animations were actually motion captured. It was one of the first motion captured games, and again, I don't know where I read that, probably in EGM, but playing it today, I don't know if that is quite the case. I mean, the weapons feel good, they have a nice kind of, I would say, rhythm to them, and the animations are pretty smooth for the time, but I couldn't tell you if this was actually motion captured or not. But basically here you have the standard Virtua Fighter formula. You got characters fighting all over kind of the empty night streets of Tokyo. It's not clear to me why this is called Last Bronx. I'm guessing that was not its Japanese name, but, you get the impression that the streets have turned violent, and, these combatants are out there in these, empty Tokyo locations battling it out. The battle system, though, it has to be said, is not really as, I would say, fluidly 3D as Virtua Fighter 2 or Fighting Vipers. This game is, it has that pseudo 3D feel of kind of a rival schools. I mean, you're not really circling in 360 degrees around your opponent. To my knowledge, you can't really knock them out of the ring, or at least I have not done that in my playthroughs of the game. And it's very it maintains that rock, paper, scissors fighting formula that Virtua Fighter introduced, but it's very timing based. It's kind of, you want to throw your opponent off of his or her timing and then land a string of attacks. And this is also one of the first games that I remember playing that really had, a juggling mechanic. If you could throw off your opponent at the right time, you could sort of juggle them into a combo and beat them pretty easily. So, in that sense, it's not, I think, as entertaining to play over the long term as something like Virtua Fighter 2 was. It can get kind of tiring, it can get kind of frustrating on the higher difficulty levels, but it is still fun, and I would say that, it kind of gets the short shrift as far as Saturn fighters go. I actually think a lot of the 3D fighting games on the Saturn are sadly overlooked. But, the characters in this one are all unique enough and have the, sort of different timing patterns. It makes it legitimately fun and interesting to sort of play through all of these guys. And if you like, not Fighting Vipers, if you like rival schools, I think this game might appeal to you. And at least for me, back when I discovered it as I was collecting the Japanese 3D fighters, I think in a way it's actually better than Fighting Vipers. I always thought there was something off about the timing of Fighting Vipers. The speed of that game was really increased over Virtua Fighter 2, but the jumping was still kind of floaty, and then they tried the camera zooms. This seems like a more pure kind of adaptation of the great Virtua Fighter 2 engine. As far as modes, it's fairly bare bones. You have the arcade mode, where you basically fight your way to a guy named Red Eye, who is the sister of one of these characters. Then you have the Saturn mode, which you start off playing as, I think, one of the girls, and there's kind of more of a story to it. But there's something about it, you couldn't unlock. There's like a Doral-like character from Virtua Fighter if you beat the arcade mode, I believe, with no losses or no no. It's either you didn't lose a single match or you didn't use a single continue. I can't quite remember, but that is absent from the Saturn mode. And then there's a special disc that kind of has artwork and things like that. I believe there's some sort of full motion video locked away on there as well. So it's a very, very convincing package, and if you like Virtua Fighter, I think this is worth picking up. Again, not as deep, not as exciting to play, but a nice adaptation of that engine. So I thank you as always for watching Game Escape, and I'll be back shortly with another video.